Hello and welcome to a special 5th anniversary edition of The Observers. You spot it, we vet it. I'm François Picard with Derek Thompson. Derek, happy birthday.
Thank you very much. It's very kind.
All right, what better way to introduce what you guys do than by introducing our two guests?
Absolutely. We're joined by Alan and Enas. Alan comes from Shanghai. We're blurring his face to protect his identity. He is one of our most prolific observers. He's our guide to everything that's interesting on the Chinese web. And Enas comes from Libya. That means she just lived through a revolution. She writes a blog about NGOs that are trying to help build civil society there as the country finds its way after the revolution.
Let me ask both of you, how did you guys hear about The Observers? Alan, how did you hear about it?
I visited France 24 website and knew France 24 observers. So I'm very interested in contribute to this program and let world know what's going on in China and let our voice be heard in the world.
All right, so interested in France and interested in how the rest of the world sees China. Enas, how about you?
Actually, I started before for just 5 months. I'm so excited.
So after the overthrow of Gaddafi, it's been since
yeah,
then. Yeah.
I'm blogger since 5 years ago. I started when I was 14.
Wow.
It was a special experience for me. With observers, I started at July in this election, and I think it will be a good experience.
How many observers are there in the world?
We have signed up 3,000 people. We have 3,000 regular contributors like Alan and Enas now. So they send in the reports regularly. We have another 60,000 people who signed up to be potential contributors. Now, these are people we can call all over the world if we're interested in what's happening on the island of Kiribati in the Pacific. We can't call anyone because there's no one there, but we call people in Wallis and Futuna, which is close by.
Right.
And these people are all kinds of people. We've got lawyers, doctors, construction workers, miners, a lot of students, a lot of IT people because they have access to computers. And basically, they're any people who can tell us what's going on in the country they live in and how it has a concrete effect on their lives. We're not interested in opinions, more on how they're living.
That's right, and it's what's going on in text and in pictures. Derek, you were saying that 2009 was sort of a watershed moment for the observers.
Absolutely, but there was a little bit of skepticism amongst a lot of the journalistic community towards everything that was the internet, and that was until 2009. We had the election in Iran, the disputed election there, and the very dramatic demonstrations that happened after that. And then they threw all the journalists out, and the only source for images was YouTube. And the problem with YouTube is that you go on there, you see images, you don't know where they came from. We already had
Sometimes you get burned.
And you can get burned, and it's happened a lot of times. But not to us, because we had 24 observers already living in Iran, across the country. We were able to ask them to look at the videos on YouTube and say, is that true? Did that happen where they say it was? And they would say, yes, I was in Isfahan that day, July 29th. I validate that it was true.
All right.
So it gave us a real edge there.
All right, so the growth of the internet, we saw it with Iran, with the Arab Spring, accompanying sort of mirroring huge upheavals. Huge upheavals not just, though, in the wider Middle East, also in China.
Absolutely, yeah. We have a report now that comes from the village of Wukan. It was sent in by another observer, not by Alan, but by an observer we call Dr. Deng. He uses a pseudonym. We have to protect our observers' identities in many cases. So let's take a look.
At first, the villagers said they weren't starting a revolution. They said they just wanted the government to hear their grievances. So they made signs and banners and marched to the local government's headquarters. The police reacted by trying to quash the demonstration. Riot police were sent in to break it up, but the villagers filmed the incident and put their videos online. After that, they elected representatives. They organized themselves really well in order to continue their protest. The protest lasted from September to December. In the end, the authorities agreed to negotiate with the villagers. They were satisfied with this and decided to put an end to their protest. It might be too optimistic to see this protest as a start of something bigger, but it's the first time the Chinese villagers get this organized by, for example, electing representatives in order to succeed in their goals.
Alan, again, the internet is key in all of this in China.
Yes, internet is a very important platform to express our opinions.
And in the case of Wuhan, was the mainstream media, was television in China, were they covering what was happening in the village of Wuhan, or were people talking about it online?
Actually, the mainstream media in China did not cover Wuhan protest because mainstream media are controlled by government. However, netizens are talking about the protests every day on Weibo, Chinese Twitter-like service. So the videos and the photos are shared by thousands or even millions of netizens, and let the world know what's happening there.
And when you use social networking sites like Weibo, do you sometimes find there are limits? There are things that you can't do?
Yes, of course. There are many words are forbidden to post. However, netizens have many methods to circumvent the censorship. The first method is to use other words instead. For example, 波西来, 波 in Chinese means thin. However, Chinese netizens use not thick instead. And the second method is to convert the word into pictures and upload to Weibo.
Right. So there's ways to buck the system. Derek, the Great Firewall of China, but in neighboring Burma with its secretive junta, you found a story once where there was an internet revolt over the lottery.
Well, it started out with a story about police corruption. What I love about this story, and a lot of what the Observers does, is that the unexpected things you learn about a country. Now, Burma, we all know about Aung San Suu Kyi and the monks and the generals. This was a piece about police corruption. There was video of a policeman stopping buses and taking bribes from them. What I love is that we also learned in the report that the police skim money off of illegal lotteries, and the Burmese are crazy about them. And also the Burmese complain about it all on the internet in Burmese, which is a very elegant language, beautiful script. So you learn all these, you get a much more nuanced picture of Burma just from a 1-minute report.
And you learn not to mess with the lottery. To Ines now, you're a blogger in Libya.
Yeah.
After the revolution, this summer, you went, and we can show the images, and voted for the first time.
The elections of July 7th, 2012 marked a momentous turning point for Libya. I wrote a post about it on our Libya blog, in which I shared the most striking amateur photos taken that day. Among these photos was one of Libya's interim Prime Minister, Abdelrahim Al-Kib. He's hugging a very old man. This photograph was widely reposted on social media networks. Another image I loved was one of elderly women going to vote. There were lots of elderly women at the polling stations. They were some of the very first ones to line up in the morning. Many photos of these women were posted on Facebook and Twitter. Once the voting was over, I went out onto the streets. Everybody was heading to the centre of the capital, where prayers were broadcast all night long to celebrate the election. I feel very happy now. I got to accomplish one of the main goals of the revolution. I voted. Many Libyans sacrificed their lives for the right to vote, so this was truly a historic day.
I love those pictures. I've got to ask you, because ever since you told us at the top of the show that you started blogging at 14, what do your parents think of all of this?
At the first time, it was hard to write. In Libya, you know, the situation was very hard. The security was in everywhere.
There was the entry you wrote when you were just 16. You were telling me about Muammar Gaddafi coming to visit the town when you lived outside Tripoli, and you didn't call him Gaddafi because that could have gotten you in trouble. You just told him, you just said the man is coming to visit, and how they were painting the town. The town was going to look beautiful for his visit. And then in your blog, you said what would happen after he left.
No.
That it would go back to just the regular poverty and just looking.
Did you get in trouble for that?
What?
Did you get in trouble for that?
Yeah.
You got in trouble.
Yeah.
What happened?
At the, what's called Al-Fatah, there is some parties to because Muammar Gaddafi was coming to the city, so the people painted the walls, and after that they some people steal everything in the city. So that's I write a blog about that to say the man was here. I talking about Gaddafi in 1909. It was very hard because many people told me you should delete this blog, you should remove this blog, but it's still on my blog.
It's still up there.
Yeah,
And now the revolution is past
yeah,
and can stay up there.
yeah.
All right. Derek, The Observers is not always about doing brave things like Enos has done. Sometimes it's the little, as you were saying, the little observations of ordinary life that tell a lot.
Well, we try to mix it up, but we sometimes light stories can tell you something about a country as well. And we have a report from Iran that we ran this summer. Let's take a look.
Earlier this month, a rumor made the rounds on Iranian Facebook pages that the soda giant Pepsi was going to use giant lasers to broadcast its logo on the moon. It was supposed to happen on June 5th. Thousands of Iranians went up on their rooftops to take a look, only to be cruelly disappointed. A similar thing happened back in 1979, Faria says, a rumor just before Ayatollah Khomeini's return from exile that his face would appear on the moon. A lot of people insisted they saw it.
Now, I don't know what that tells you about Iran, about Pepsi or Facebook, but it does tell you, maybe at the very least, that people in Iran follow, they're on Facebook, they know what Pepsi is, just as much as anyone in LA does, for instance.
Sure. Been 5 years for The Observers. What's next?
We are launching a mobile application for iPhones and for Android, which is going to have all of our reports on it, all of our observers' reports, but also tweets. Our observers around the world will be able to tweet things. They'll use the hashtag OBS, OBS, and those will find their way automatically onto the app. But more broadly speaking, I want to make sure that we invite more of our observers here to Paris so we get to see them in the flesh. It's been a pleasure. But we also want to go to where they live so that we can film them going about their business and get a deeper view of them and how they live.
All right, that's a message for the boss. Let Derek get out of the office and meet those observers. Thanks, Derek. I want to thank Alan and Enos for being with us, and thank you for joining us here for this 5th anniversary edition of The Observers.